Remember in writing class when you had to revise a paper over and over again? That's partly what happens for me when I'm externally processing something. It could be almost anything: an emotionally charged conversation I had, a confusing look someone gave me at the grocery store, the meaning of song lyrics. All of those are subject to this same process. A listener to the show, Justin, has dubbed this the live edit. Let's talk about it. Hey, I'm Dr. Regina McMenomy, and I'm a coach for late-diagnosed nerdy folks with ADHD and autism. Catch me on Instagram at Dr. Regina PhD, and subscribe to my newsletter, Nerd Notes. The link is in the show description. So let's talk about what I think is a classic neurodivergent move: repeating a story over and over again in the same setting. This is different from when you repeat a story to someone at a different time. So maybe you told somebody about your high school prom once, and then you tell them the same story months or years later. That's not the same thing as we're talking about. I'm talking about taking the same story, that weird look you got from somebody at the grocery store, and telling that story multiple times as you're trying to process through it. You're looking to get the words right. You're looking to find the emotions in the story. You're looking for the version that makes it finally have that moment where it clicks into place and you understand better what your emotional reaction was, what their emotional reaction was, what, could have possibly been going on in any one of the scenarios. And it gets to that point when it clicks where you can let it go, where you can be done with it, at least to, a large degree. So we're going to call this, thanks to Justin, the live edit. So let's talk about why this happens. Like I said, this isn't the forgetfulness. This isn't when you forget that you've already told somebody this story. This is a processing thing where you're going through the story, probably when it's reasonably fresh, when it's just happened, when you're trying to work through something. And part of what I think we're trying to do when this happens is find the exact wording that captures the emotion for the experience, right? The digging into all of the different things that happened so you can figure out what you were feeling about it at the time. It allows you a chance to see how the other person reacts to what's happening. Often for me, I don't always catch how, dismissive or sometimes mean people can be to me, because I tend to look at interactions and give people a lot of grace. I don't always recognize when people aren't being kind to me. So sometimes processing through a story like this allows me to see how the other person reacts. Often I will remember when I am retelling a story in the same setting, I will remember details in the second or third retelling of the story that I missed in the first one. So the repetition allows me to get into the core of what happened and to remember things that happened, in the moment. And even further from that, even further from just getting into catching the details of what happens, it's a way for me to emotionally regulate. So going through and being able to tell the story over and over again allows me to look at it from different angles, but also allows me to look at it from different emotions, right? Where I can maybe sometimes track what was going on in my body, or, what was the catch and the different emotions that were happening that I maybe didn't pick up on during the initial storytelling, or the initial time I sort of restated or went through whatever it was that I'm trying to process. So I think it's important to recognize that it's not just about needing to retell the story, that there really is a nervous system and an emotional regulation that's going on while you're doing this repeated storytelling and external processing. So for neurodivergent brains, language can often be really important. I've talked about this before in other episodes where I talk about my need to find the perfect word. Words can be tied to emotional closure. Like I said, already we don't often know how we feel until we're talking about something. And I know I personally, I will 100% own that I am an external processor. I always thought that because I journaled so much, because I have tons and tons of notebooks from journaling throughout my life, that I was an internal processor because of the journaling. But it turns out journaling is actually an external process because it's you putting the words on the page, which is pretty much the same thing. And there are even times in my journal where you will see me tell the same story multiple times. Not often, right after, one after another, but I will go through, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days of writing about the same thing if it had a lot of emotional impact on me. Part of that external process is me getting to how I actually felt about it. Like I have to play through it a few times to be able to see what the emotions were that I was having. And it's a process of drafting that inner narrative in real time, which is why this phrase that Justin came up with of live edit is so helpful. Like I am live editing. It's like looking at the Google Doc when somebody else is in it and editing it. That's what's happening when I'm telling the story over and over again. I'm not trying to over explain. I'm not trying to be self-absorbed in it. I have been accused of being self-absorbed in having this as part of my process. That is not the intention that I have with it. It really is just me needing to process through things to get to a point where I can move on from it. It does feel like a spiral sometimes when I'm in the moment. I worry because I have been admonished before at being self-centered, about taking up too much time, taking up too much energy from people. I do worry that it makes me seem like I'm too much, or that I'm rambling, or if somebody doesn't understand it. I've had people say, you already said that, or can we stop talking about this story? I've mentioned that in other episodes too. That was, a really cutting comment I got from someone one time, was that they wanted to walk out of the room and stop talking to me because I kept going over something. It is important to soothe your nervous system, especially if you're emotionally activated and that's what you're processing through. And it does give a sense of cognitive closure. So I am very fortunate at this point in my life to have a handful of friends who allow me to just process when I need to process, and know that I will often need just time and space to go through the story again and again to get to that point where I can have that closure. And the release I can feel once I have been able to go through it long enough is unbelievably helpful and grounding. And I'm very thankful to those friends and a very patient counselor who allow me to process the way that is natural to me and natural to my nervous system. So let's talk about some tips to work with this instead of against it, because as you know, I am always about finding the ways to figure out how to allow your natural tendencies to be part of your process. So naming it, like just saying to your friends or to your family or to your partner, I need to live edit. I need to go through a process where I repeat this story over and over again to get through it, to get it to the point where I can be done with it. It might be helpful in that when you're naming it to ask your very kind and gracious family member, friends, or partners, do you have the time for me to do this right now? And if they don't, ask them if they would later, or what would be a good time to kind of come back to it as something you can go to. As I said, journaling is a really good version of this. Using voice memos is a good way to do this too, where if you're in a moment and you need to just talk and you need to feel like it's being processed, you can put it on a voice memo. Even if you wanted to tell the story, this could be a really interesting thing to do. I haven't done this, but you could record a voice memo. You could tell it once. You could end the voice memo and tell it a second time, and then tell it a third time, and make the voice memos separate. So you can go back and listen to what your first one was like, and your second one, and your third one. That was a really fascinating process. I might need to do that myself the next time. I do use a lot of the things I suggest in the show, but sometimes I suggest things that I think might be helpful, not knowing how they might be helpful for me too. So this is one that might be really interesting. So yeah, voice memos, journaling, texting a friend that you feel like you can process this with, again, with the understanding of, this is where I'm at and I'm in the middle of doing a live edit. Do you have time to help? And one thing I do this one all the time. So when I'm in this process of looping through and doing a live edit, I try to pay attention to how my body feels while I'm retelling the story. So if there is an emotional charge to what I'm retelling, which there almost always is for me, where in the story do I feel tense? Where in the story does my breath catch? Where do I start to maybe feel a little sick to my stomach, or a little fluttery, or a little, whatever the emotion is, like what is going on in my body as I'm telling the story? Because that can be a really good indication of what it is that's still troubling you about this story or this interaction or whatever it is that you're talking about. So you can lean into that moment and say, oh, hey, now that I'm retelling this for the 18th time, I have recognized that when she said, I had a rock in my stomach, or my shoulders tensed up really hard or something like that. And you can lean into, oh, what did that mean? Or whatever, whatever other things you might want to pull out of there, being able to clue into where your underprocessed feelings are living in that story by trying to clue back into what your body felt like in the moment, but also what you feel like as you're retelling the story. So I think that it's been really helpful for me to pay attention to where the feelings are as I'm retelling the story. So if this live edit sounds like something that you do, I see you. Oh, and I am you. This is me. Needing repetition for something to feel real or to feel finished isn't a flaw. This is just part of how our neurodivergent brains work. I talk more about neurodivergent communication, regulation, and self-understanding in my newsletter, Nerd Notes, where we can rewrite any of our stories together. So sign up in the show description for Nerd Notes, book a clarity call if you would like to have some one-on-one time to talk about what a live edit, we could do a live edit in a clarity call. Until next time, stay regulated and keep editing live whenever you need to.